So confidence is your ability or willingness to put yourself out there boldly and authentically. And this one is one that a lot of athletes, I'm sure you know, would ask me about all the time when it came to confidence. And one thing that at the amateur level and at the professional level, I think can separate players a lot, especially at the pro level, is confidence. Because at the professional level, everybody has talent. Everybody has game. Everybody has a resume. Everybody can do stuff. So when the people who are watching this right now who have not dealt with pro athletes, when you watch a basketball game, for example, the guys who are sitting on the bench waving the towels are just as good as the guys on the court scoring 30 points. They have all the same talents, all the same abilities. The difference is the way that they see themselves when they look in the mirror. If you see yourself as the guy at the end of the bench, that's who you're going to be, especially when you're going up against a guy who sees himself as a superstar. Now, I'm not saying that just thinking that and you can hypnotize yourself into becoming Kobe Bryant or Micahel Jordan, but when you see yourself that way, what happens is you will take actions that reflect the person that you see in the mirror. You'll take actions that you'll show up a little bit earlier. You'll stay a little bit later. You'll score more points because you expect to do so. You expect to do certain things. When you have a certain expectation, your actions will reflect those expectations.
Most of us never learned how to train our brains, which is why most of us needlessly settle, struggle, and worse, suffer. My name is Chris Dorris, and I want to make brain training mainstream. This is my series, Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm interviewing badasses from all walks of life on what mental toughness means to them and their unique approaches to strengthening their minds. Hey everybody, welcome back to Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I am your host, Chris Dorris, and our first order of business is to ensure that you are in fact getting notifications of these Tough Talks episodes, as well as my blog posts, and as well as my daily dose mental toughness tips in 30 seconds or less every day in your mailbox at 6:30 a.m. If you're not getting all of that, then let's correct that horrific situation, shall we? By simply going to ChristopherDorris.com/lists, L-I-S-T-S, ChristopherDorris.com/lists. Our guest today on the show, his name is Dre Baldwin, or Dre All Day Baldwin. Now, I've only spent a few minutes with him in preparation. I don't know him very well. I don't know him. I've spent 5 minutes with him on the phone just talking about the show. But I've done a lot of research on the guy, and I have a sneaky suspicion that we have a lot in common in terms of like what our professional vocations and missions are about. You know, we both played D3 hoops. He took it a little bit further than me. He took it a lot further than me. And we're both from Philly too, the Philly area. We're from other sides of Philly. I'm from South Jersey, just immediately east, and I think he's from just outside of Philly on the other side. On the western side of Philadelphia. That's cool. But anyway, we both played Division III basketball in the state of Pennsylvania, and then he went on. So let me just tell you a little bit about, like, because this is really cool and this is very interesting, and I can't wait to hear more about this from him. But D3 is not a big deal. Like, to play D3 ball is not like amazing, but to have been on your varsity team in high school, but it took you to your senior year, and then you just ride pine the whole time, so you're not a superstar, and then you're a walk-on even at a D3 basketball team. And maybe I'm like kind of underplaying that. To walk on to a D3 team, it's not a cakewalk, but still, it's not like playing for Villanova. But then he walked on, right, and then. If I'm remembering correctly from his bio, there was like when he was there, his coach like got fired or something. They got a new coach at his team, and then that coach, the new coach, the incoming coach, like cleaned house, so he got like cut. But then he still went on, like he never gave up. And I really want to explore this with him because I think there's some real valuable learning for us all in like that phase, like what he did with that. He did what it took to go still play professional basketball all throughout Europe for 9 years, and in Mexico as well. And now, and while he was doing that, he started his own business while he was doing that. So now you check him out, and I'm going to put all the links and stuff to his stuff. He is like as prolific as anyone. He has millions. He has several YouTube videos. He's got a jillion YouTube videos, but several of them that have millions of views. And so he's like got a huge following. He's put out, I don't know how many books. I can't remember, some number that was like, really, I had to look at it twice, like 25 books or something like that. But it's all on the mental game, right? So his company is called Work on Your Game, which is cool. And now the word game refers to the game of life, not just sports. So let's go get some wisdom drops from our man Dre all day. He's here somewhere. Let's go find him. Where are you, man?
And there he is, Dre all day, Baldwin. What's up, man?
What's going on, Chris? I'm doing excellent. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I just want to start off by saying I'm excited that you're here too. And one of the things that I wanted to, I just gave everybody a pretty thorough introduction of who you are and your history and stuff. So I'm sure they're already excited to hear from you. But one thing I did not say in the introduction, which I meant to but forgot, was how we connected. Right, which I think is a learning piece for everybody in the first place. Is you reached out to me, and what you did was you went the extra yard. You recorded this phenomenal, like really thorough, in 2 minutes, introductory videos to me that you posted on YouTube, a private link, and then sent to me, which I thought that's pretty badass, right? Yeah. And that's already, that's an example. So my first impression of you was like, okay, this is a dude who is not afraid to ask for what he wants.
That's right.
And one of my favorite teachers in the world, her name is Byron Katie. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite quotes, are you familiar with her?
Yes, I am.
Oh, right on, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes of her is that anybody could have anything that they want if they were willing to ask 1,000 people for it.
That's right.
So I get the impression, having researched you, dude, that you're not really too inhibited. It's just an impression. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I just get that vibe.
You are absolutely right, Chris. And when it comes to, that's one of the things that I talk to my audiences about is your willingness to put yourself out there. That's what I talk, whenever I talk to people about confidence, you got to be willing to put yourself out there. If you're going to sell anything, especially yourself, and especially these days on the internet, when I'm sure you get plenty of people reaching out to you. And if you're not willing to put yourself out there in some way, make yourself stand out, make yourself be remembered, then you're going to be forgotten. You'll be overlooked and not even acknowledged. So I need to learn that back in the sports days, and you definitely need it in the business world days, because at least in sports, there's a limited number of roster spots. In business, anybody can play. So you need it even more in the business world.
You know, it's interesting. You just reminded me of something else that I didn't think would be coming up here in this conversation, especially not so quickly, is something that another coach, a former coach of mine, whose name is Steve Hardison, one of the most powerful coaches on the planet Earth. He goes by the nickname of the ultimate coach. He said to me one time that, you know, if you're not, I think I was in conversation, a coaching session with him, and somebody had sent me a pretty harsh-ass email in response to some stuff I was putting out there. It might have been a Michael Vick post or something. It wasn't intentionally provocative, but I guess it was. And I was telling him about that. I'm like, this person's like pissed off. Like, I think it was a former client, and they were going off on me. I would never work with you again. I'm going to badmouth you. I'm like, wow. And he said to me, look, man, you know, if people aren't taking offense to what you're putting out there, you're probably not showing up.
Right.
And that doesn't mean like you're ever trying to offend people, but if people aren't taking offense, and you are so unbelievably prolific. You have unbelievable amounts of content out there, millions and millions of YouTube views. You have so much stuff, so many books, so much stuff. I want to back up and start at the beginning, because you already mentioned confidence, but that's only one of the 4 pillars which I want to talk about. So your company is called Work on Your Game. Tell me why, and there's this right there in your hat. Why is that the name of your gig?
Well, I used that phrase once when I was making a YouTube video. This is over 10 years ago. I was in a 24-hour fitness, just working on my game as usual. But this is before I started using that phrase. But a lot of players have been, this is around 2008, 2009. So this is before YouTube was YouTube. This is before branding, influencing, all of those things. And I just been putting videos on YouTube sporadically, and it was mostly just me on the basketball court practicing. And I would just put it out and let players learn from me, because I never had anyone teaching me grow up. So I figured, all right, let me just pay it forward to this next generation. So players would watch my videos and they would leave comments, and they would always ask me, can you give me some tips? Can you give me some advice? Can you give me some help to get better? And one of the things that perplexed me was that these players are always asking me for tips and advice, but I'm in the gym practicing. They're on YouTube watching YouTube videos. So I made this video and I said, because I had my camera with me in the gym, and I said, the reason why you players are having trouble and you're getting cut from your team and your teammates don't pass you the ball is because when I'm in the gym practicing, you're on YouTube watching me. So I told them, listen, don't even watch this video anymore. X out the video, turn off Xbox, stop standing on the corner, and go work on your game. And I wasn't trying to brand that statement. I was just saying, I was just talking off the top of my head. So when players heard it, they started repeating it back to me, because I put some colorful language in between those 4 words. And when the players heard that, they kept repeating it back to me. And I said, all right, I should actually use this. And the great thing about it is, even though it started in the basketball world, is that you can use it anywhere. So it's not really a sports phrase. It's just a phrase that
it comes from
as soon as somebody hears it.
I love that. I totally love that.
It applies to anything.
So, what's that?
I said, as soon as someone hears it, they understand what it means.
Yeah, because your game is whatever your world is.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like you got game, we know what that means, whatever content. So yeah, I love that, having been a former sports psychologist working exclusively with athletes, working on their games through strength of the mind, and now I'm only working with a handful of athletes. Now it's all in the business world, very similar to you. We have similar backgrounds. Exactly. And we're also both from Philly. I got some props out for you. Yeah. Where did you say that you grew up?
I grew up in Mount Airy.
I thought you said that the other day. We only had, by the way, I've only spoken to you for like 5 minutes of my life prior to today. And when we hung up, I thought, wait, did he just say Mount Airy? Because I remember Mount Airy, the commercial for the Mount Airy Lodge is still in my brain from growing up. I'm a bit older than you. But is that near the Poconos?
No, the Poconos is outside of Philadelphia.
Where is Mount Airy?
Mount Airy's in the northwest part next to Germantown.
Okay, so there's a thing called the Mount Airy Lodge. I don't know what it is, but I had to get some things out today because today's a big day. At the time of this recording, we've got 3 of our teams playing. So I got a flagpole out there, and I put and this is the order. So we got the Phillies in about an hour and a half, and then we got the Sixers playing here at 3:30, and then after that, and that's the playoffs with the Celtics. And then we got our boys, Broad Street Bullies.
The Flyers playing tonight
at 5 o'clock. So I just took these out for Philly Spirit.
Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect Philly day.
They will all be flying at different times today.
Oh, yeah.
Can't remember where I got off on that subject. Okay, so that's the work on your game. Where that came from as a name for your company, which is great. Now, you already mentioned 4 pillars. All right, so can we go through those 4 pillars of your business? Because you already actually mentioned one, which is confidence.
Right.
That's not the first one.
No. So the 4 pillars of the work on your game philosophy. Number 1 is discipline. Discipline of showing up every single day to do the work. The second one is confidence and putting yourself out there boldly and authentically. The third is mental toughness. Your willingness and ability to continue to be disciplined and confident, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And the fourth is personal initiative. Your willingness and ability to go out there and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen.
Okay, so that's going to totally give us more than enough. Okay, so we're going to, if it's cool with you, I want to slow those down. Like I want to talk about them completely.
Let's do it.
But is it cool with you if we rearrange the order?
Sure.
If we go discipline, confidence, personal initiative, and then mental toughness?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
That'd be great.
Roger that. All right, talk to us about discipline.
Well, discipline, the reason why I made this the first principle of the whole work on your game philosophy, because discipline to me is a big differentiator. It can differentiate in the beginning, at least at the amateur levels. Because when I was first starting to play basketball, I started playing quote unquote late. I was around age 14. I played other sports, but I didn't get into basketball until about 14. And all the players in the neighborhood were better than me. I didn't have anyone taking me under their wing. Neither of my parents was an athlete like that. I don't have any brothers. So I didn't have any help. I had to basically figure it out. And this was pre-YouTube, pre-Instagram. So there was nowhere to get information. You just went to the court and played, and whatever you figured out, if you figured anything out. So of course, you know Philly. So I'm on the street ball courts, just practicing.
Apparently not
by
all of
myself.
Philly. I didn't even know where the hell Mount Airy was. My bad.
Okay, well, the rest of Philly's the same way. So
I'm gonna
it's
have to,
outdoor
after we're
basketball.
done, I just for a second, I'm gonna have to go back because it's bugging me. I got to go do a search on this Mount Airy Lodge situation because I want to know what the hell it was. I think I was just making an assumption it's actual lodge. I don't know what it is or what it was. Maybe it was a casino. I don't know what the hell it was.
It might be outside of the city, but they just call it the Mount Airy Lodge. I don't know if it's actually in Mount Airy.
Roger that. All right. I just having flashbacks as soon as I hear Mount Airy. I remember they had, speaking of branding, they must have done a pretty good job because this is like 30 years ago that I'm listening to this commercial on TV or something. Anyway, all right. So back to discipline.
All right. So what the discipline part is, I just kept showing up to the court and practicing on my own and just hoping that I could figure things out. I didn't have anyone teaching me specifically the functions or techniques or anything. And I eventually started to get better. And I just kept practicing. And eventually I started to move up and catch up to the players who were already ahead of me. And eventually I passed them up, not because I was more talented than them, but because I just continued to show up and work on my game when a lot of them kind of got lazy. A lot of them started to rest on their laurels. And a lot of those players who were better than me, they would kind of laugh at me and say, well, why are you practicing? I'm already better than you. And here I am. I'm going to the mall while you're on the court practicing. They'd be walking past the playground while I'm on the court. So they say, well, Dre, look, I'm not even practicing today and I'm still better than you. And they were. But it was over time, gradually, every single day, I got a little bit closer to them, a little bit closer. Then eventually I caught up to them and eventually I was able to pass them simply because I had the discipline to continually show up and work on my game. And then
that's what it is. That's your definition. Keep showing up.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep showing up.
And I use that same mentality, those same principles. I use those in the business world as well, just to learn what works, learn what doesn't work, iterate over time. And eventually you're going to figure it out as long as you keep going. I mean, the cliche is you only lose when you quit. And it is true. It's cliche, but it's true. So as long as you just keep going, you will figure things out.
Yeah. So staying with it.
That's right.
I don't know if it was Tony Robbins or where I heard this from, but it's like some weird, crazy, huge percentage. And I don't know how you would ever study this or measure this, rather. Some massive percentage of people bail on their dream or their mission or their goal or their desire, like right before they would have hit it.
Right.
Without knowing that, of course.
It's like that cartoon where the guy has the axe and he's about to get to the diamonds. Have you seen that cartoon?
No, say it.
So it's two cartoons. There's one guy on the top and one guy on the bottom. They both have like a pickaxe and they're like in an underground tunnel and they're chopping at the rock trying to get to the diamonds.
I know. Yeah.
And then there's one guy who's like 2 inches away from the diamonds, but he's walking away in disgust because he's like, man, I did all this work and nothing happened. And then the other guy, he's just continuing to go and he's about to hit it. And the whole thing is, if you would have just kept going, then you would have got to your result. So that's
okay. Now let me ask you this before we move on to confidence. Like, is discipline learnable?
Yes, it is learnable if you choose something in which you are willing to be disciplined. It's hard to force discipline on yourself for something that you don't see a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow that's worth it for you. So you have to choose the right vocation if you want to get disciplined. You can't force it on yourself for something you don't want.
That's a big caveat, man. That's a huge deal because this is very relevant to the listeners. Okay, so in my research on job satisfaction, what I've discovered is the Gallup industry does these polls, and they've been doing it for decades on in America at least on people's job satisfaction, and the data that they've collected has been virtually identical for 30 years. And what it said, the report is that around 84% of Americans report disliking their jobs.
Sounds accurate.
That's amazing to me, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, how do you talk to these people about discipline? Because they're in it. They're in now. I have a hypothesis. I could never prove this right now, but I could just throw it out there, which is that there's a reason. Like, there's a reason. I mean, how do you interpret that data? 84% of people are not involved in a vocation that they love. Go ahead.
I think they end up there because people make a career choice not based on doing what they love. They make their career choice based on, is this expedient for me? Can it make me money? Can it pay the bills? Can it take care of my kids? Is it close to the house? Will they give me good benefits? Can I retire off this? That's what they make their choice off of. It's not based on if they love it or not.
So how do you talk to them about discipline? Or what is the contextually relevant conversation on discipline for a person who is in that circumstance?
Explaining to them, same thing like I said before, Chris, is that they would need to make a leap. It doesn't have, maybe they don't love the job, but maybe they do love that their kids can go to private school. Maybe they don't love the work they do and their boss, but they do love having 3 cars in the garage. Maybe they don't love their coworkers, but they love being able to pay the bills and knowing that 30 years from now they can retire one day. So maybe that's just the way that they would have to look at it if they're going to stay there. I mean, they don't have to keep working there, do they? They can leave.
Well, hell yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, I always start in my interaction with people. I'm like, what's the dream? And why is that not your life right now? All right, so let's move on to pillar number 2, which is confidence.
Yes. So confidence is your ability or willingness to put yourself out there boldly and authentically. And this one is one that a lot of athletes, I'm sure would ask me about all the time when it came to confidence. And one thing that at the amateur level and at the professional level, I think can separate players a lot, especially at the pro level, is confidence. Because at the professional level, everybody has talent. Everybody has game. Everybody has a resume. Everybody can do stuff. So when the people who are watching this right now who have not dealt with pro athletes, when you watch a basketball game, for example, the guys who are sitting on the bench waving the towels are just as good as the guys on the court scoring 30 points. They have all the same talents, all the same abilities. The difference is the way that they see themselves when they look in the mirror. If you see yourself as the guy at the end of the bench, that's who you're going to be, especially when you're going up against a guy who sees himself as a superstar. Now, I'm not saying that just thinking that and you can hypnotize yourself into becoming Kobe Bryant or Micahel Jordan, but when you see yourself that way, what happens is you will take actions that reflect the person that you see in the mirror. You'll take actions that you'll show up a little bit earlier. You'll stay a little bit later. You'll score more points because you expect to do so. You expect to do certain things. When you have a certain expectation, your actions will reflect those expectations.
Okay, let's slow that down because that is absolutely a mic drop moment takeaway segment here. When you see yourself that way, is what you said.
That's right.
Right? So let's examine what that means, or unpack that. When you see yourself as superior, as excellent, as the best, are you talking about visualization?
That can be
self-talk.
It's a combination of all of those things. And I think the first person that I heard talk about it was Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talked about, it was like a little experiment. Imagine, this was when I was probably in my teens when I read this. He said, all right, you as who you are now, imagine you're standing on the sidewalk, and I really did this. Imagine you're standing on the sidewalk in front of your house, and you see a person walking towards you on the street. And as they get closer, you realize that it's you, but it's you 5 years from now. Now you just imagine what that person's like. What have they accomplished? How do they walk? How do they talk? Who do they know? What's their reputation? How do they hold themselves? How do they feel about themselves? Just imagine how you want to be 5 years from now and picture that person walking towards you right now. And that's the person that you want to make yourself become. And this all goes into the be, do, have principle, which is the first step in achievement in life is what type of person do you need to be? And one of the things, Chris, that I find a lot of people have trouble with in life is that most people have some ideas of the things that they want, right? Not everybody, but people have things they want, goals. Then most logical, reasonable people understand that they need to do something to achieve their goals. So I had to do some work, take some action. And this is what most people do. Once they figure that out, they just start doing stuff, right? Let me go do this. Let me try this. Let me try this. But they never ask themselves the most important question, which is, who do I need to be while I'm doing those things so I can get the result? And since they never ask that question, they could be doing all the quote unquote right things and not get the result, and they don't understand why. So this is how some people can spend their whole lives working really hard, or at least it seems like they are, but they are not getting the results because they haven't done the mental alchemy hasn't occurred yet.
Oh, man, I love that terminology. That's really cool. I'm registering that. Mental alchemy. Who do I need to be in order to take the action that will permit me to have what it is that I want to have. Who do I need to be? That's another big takeaway. This is already very powerful. Who do I need to be? That's the question that most people skip. So like, all right, so I'm pretending like I'm hearing that for the first time, right? Who do I need to be? Because I referenced that coach, Steve Hardison. He talks about that constantly. He's like, you know, you tell him something that you want. He's like, well, who do you need to be you know, if you were already that guy, you'd have it. Like, that.
Right.
Like, that's hard to argue that. So who do I need
right.
to be? But I found that, you know, that can be, let's again, slow that part down. I love slowing down these nuggets for people so that they can walk away and go, man, I'll tell you, I just got 4 things. So I found that sometimes that was a difficult question to answer. Like if I said, I want to be a super successful life coach or executive coach or corporate coach and author. And he said, well, and it's just like an automatic, like an obvious question, like his automatic, obvious response. Well, who do you need to be to have that be true? Like, I'm not sure. If I was sure, I'd be it already. So how do you help someone answer that question? Because it might seem obvious to you, but I think that kind of question, because we haven't all been educated on how to, like, that's even, like, that isn't something that we learn in grade school. Like, I don't remember there was a class in high school either where, like, any
college
teacher
either.
Right? Like, none of us had that. Like, there wasn't the class on mental toughness, which we're getting to, which then an element, a chapter in that, right, in that class, a piece of the syllabus would have been, who do you need to be? Right. Open up that question, have that question become a familiar exercise to humans, like to get in a habit. I love that you brought this up. Who do you need to be? How do you help people answer that question? If like I'm just going to play, like, kind of play dumb devil's advocate kind of, and just say, like, I don't really get that question. What do you mean? Who do I need to be?
Sure. Well, it's 2 ways that you can go about it, and they can kind of work together, and they can be completely separate. One way is you can work backwards from your outcome. So let's say, for example, I'm an up-and-coming basketball player. I want to be the best player in the world. I want to be Kobe Bryant. So we'll just use him as an example. Now, this is the question that you would ask yourself as you're the 14-year-old trying to make it to the NBA. You're on your high school end-of-the-bench freshman team. How does Kobe Bryant see himself? You might not know Kobe, but how do you think he sees himself right now? How does he feel when he walks into a gym? What does he think about when he gets the ball and there's a defender in front of him? How does he feel when there's an empty gym and he has 2 hours to practice? What does Kobe Bryant think when he wakes up and he's a little bit groggy, but he knows he has a game that night? How does he approach it when he has kids and he needs to take care of his kids and he needs to tend to his significant other, but he also knows he needs to work on his game in the off season? His team just got eliminated from the playoffs. What would he do? How would he approach that? How would he think about it? Let's say he has a sprained ankle and most players wouldn't play on it, but he knows he's him and everybody's coming to the game because of him. What would he do? How would he think about it? And then all you do is answer those questions, again, based on your best assumptions of this person. You don't have to know them. Based on your best assumptions, how would they think about it? And I guarantee all your answers are going to be completely different from the way you've been thinking about it. Now, all you have to do is start using that person's mentality. How would Kobe think? How would Oprah Winfrey think? How would Micahel Jordan think? Whoever it is you think has the position that you want to be in, whether it's mentally, physically, financially, emotionally, wherever they are. And then all you need to do is start copying that, but you have to make it conscious. It has to be a conscious thing. You got to be thinking about it so that it can become habit, because it's not going to happen just because you said it once or you wrote it down once. So that's one way you can do it, is to borrow another person's mentality, again, based on your best assumptions of their mentality. And the great thing these days is a person who is very notably successful. They've been interviewed hundreds of times, all their materials out there. They might be on social media telling you all their business every day. So you have plenty of access to whatever they're thinking. Another technique is to work backward from the goal. So let's say the same person, you want to become Kobe, and you don't do the one that I just did. You say, all right, in order for me to become Kobe, I'm 14 years old sitting at the end of my bench. All right, what needs to be true? For me to be the best player on the best team in the league winning championships, what needs to be true? Well, we're going to have to get to the finals. What needs to be true? And then you just keep working backward. Every time you answer the question, what needs to be true for that to occur? You work all the way backward to, okay, I had to get drafted to the NBA. How does that happen? I have to play well in college. How does that happen? I have to go to college, get on a team, get a scholarship. How do I get a scholarship? You got to play well in high school. How do I play well in high school? Well, how about I get on the team first, earn some playing time, make sure I show up and dominate in practice every day so that the coach trusts me, so that when it's time for us to play, I'm actually getting the ball and I can do my thing. Well, how can I do my thing? I'm probably going to need to practice all summer a little bit more than I was last summer. I mean, and then you can ask yourself, what would Kobe doing this summer versus what I'm doing? Would he be at every party? Would he be at the mall chasing around girls? Or would he be at the court working on his game? Would he be at the gym lifting weights? Would he be outside waking up early to run a couple miles before he worked on his game versus what you're doing? And again, you may not know exactly what that person did, but based on your best assumption, your best intelligence, what do you think that person would be doing versus what you're doing? And if it's different, then you know what changes that you need to make. And another question you have to ask yourself is, Chris, is what are you willing to do? Because it's one thing to say what you need to do, but everybody's not willing to do everything that they need to do. And this is why some people can have the information, yet they still don't do it, because they're not willing to actually implement the answers that they've given to themselves. So this is a choice that people have to make.
Man, that's a lot right there. And I got about 15 questions. I will remember maybe 2 of them. So you said all you need to do a couple times. So I'm going to get back to that in a second. But the willingness thing, I believe that a person's willingness is hugely influenced by their belief about what's possible for them.
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that? You might not agree with that.
100%.
Okay. So when I asked a question about what are you willing to do, I want to like ask it like kind of like, you know, when's your birthday? I just want the information, because if you say, well, I really want it, but I'm not willing to do all that. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. So we've got a conflict here. Do you really want it? I want to operate from the assumption you really do for a second, at least.
Right.
And then say, well, why aren't you willing? So something's true that we're not talking about. Either you don't really want it, or you do and you don't believe you can have it.
Right. And I think it's kind of split 50-50 amongst people. I haven't done too much of a study on that, but I think there are people out there who will say, because as a coach, I'm sure, Chris, you sat in front of people and asked them, is this the thing that you really want? And nobody wants to look like a jerk and say, no, I don't really want it, because they feel stupid, right? But then when it comes time for them to execute, they're not doing it. And you're like, okay, so were you lying to me?
Sometimes, though, I have had the experience with certain clients, you know, because when I ask people, you know, what is it that you really, really want? I don't just take it at face value. I say, okay, cool. So how come? Right? Like, how come you want that? Why? Like, for what? Then what will be true when you have that? And that's true. Then what's true that's not true now? And once in a while, it is true that they really didn't want it. They just thought they should want it. Like maybe their dad wanted them to have it, you know, like to take over family business, or to, I don't know, just to make boatloads of money, because then you're a success story, and like they commit their lives to that because they think they should, as opposed to they don't really want. You know, so like I love that question. Like, are you willing? But I like it, like, curiously, like, are you actually willing to do that? Yes or no? And people, I guess it's such an interesting question, because it's like people, like when someone says, are you willing to do it? I want to go, of course I am. What do you think? I'm a wuss?
Right.
But I want the question to be more like, is this thing important enough so that you'd be willing to do what it takes?
Right.
That's a really great question. Now, something you said earlier, which was all you need to do. So like, and we're still in the who do you want to be conversation, right? And you said, think about what would Kobe be doing? You know, how would Michael be showing up? How would he be acting under these circumstances? What's he thinking about? Like when people are going to parties, where's he at? What's he doing? And then all you got to do, right, is imitate that. All you got to do. That makes it sound really easy, man.
Well,
all you got to do, and I can imagine hearing some people. Now, I think I get what you're saying. But I can also hear a lot of people going, oh, really? Well, maybe you can do that. Maybe you've got some special talent. I mean,
right.
You know, maybe you're exceptional. Like maybe you are an outlier on the normal curve of like exceptionalness. And it's so easy for you to say, all you got to do. Let's talk about the all you got to do. So you started it. So I think there's a huge a huge distinction that needs to be clarified for people, so that all you got to do is like, oh, that is all I have to do, which is you can choose to be that person.
Right.
Without waiting for shit to be different.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. Be before do. Exactly.
That's a goosebump moment for me, dude.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, and there's a whole reason I'm slowing this down. We are slowing this down hard because you have dense content, dude. I think one of the biggest obstacles that people come up against in the pursuit of their desires or excellence and creation of their dreams is that they don't get that distinction.
The be before do part.
Is that yes, and in addition to that, that it's entirely possible for me to be the badass now without waiting for any successes to occur or anything else being different.
That's everything. That's the talisman right there that separates the 2% from the 98%. That what you just explained. Right there.
Roger
I
that.
remember hearing 50 Cent told this story. You know who 50 Cent is, right? You might not. I don't know if you listen to his music, but a little bit. Okay. So one of the things that 50 talked about was obviously he got shot before he became big and blew up. And he said in that period after he got shot, between then and when he got with Eminem and Dr. Dre and he sold 20 million albums, he had to put himself in a mental space that he saw himself as a success before he actually became a success. That was the whole thing that he had to do. That's the only way he was able to get there. Kobe, as I mentioned a couple times, I mean, people told him when he was a kid, he said, I want to go to the NBA. And they said, well, it's only 1 in a million chance you make it to the NBA. He said, well, I'm trying to be that one. I want to be the one who is the 1 in a million who makes it. So you have to see yourself, like I told you with the Stephen Covey example from his book. You must see yourself as that person that you plan on becoming and carry yourself as that individual before you become that individual. The challenge with it, there are 2 challenges with it. There's the external and the internal. The external challenge is that other people are going to see you doing this who do not understand it, and they're going to ridicule you. They may attack you. They may look at you like you're crazy. They may ignore you. They may try to hit you in the head with no quote unquote reality that you're not there yet. What are you doing? You haven't achieved any of these things. Why are you carrying yourself like that? That's the external. And the internal is the more important one, because the internal one is the one that you're saying to yourself. And internally, here's what a lot of people do. They project their own inferiority feelings about themselves onto other people. So they say, oh, well, other people are going to think this. Other people are saying this. Other people are going to do this. When in reality, other people are not thinking about us as much as we think about us. We're all thinking about ourselves. So we internalize our own feelings about us, and then we project it on the other people when other people don't even care what we're doing.
When you said like someone has the courage to say, yeah, I want to be in the NBA, and a person goes, it's like a 1 in a million chance.
Yeah.
And as I'm listening to you say that, perhaps a large part, that's probably very accurate, right? And perhaps a large part of why it's accurate is because everyone else, the 999,999 other people, are thinking that they can.
Right. You got all these examples of people who didn't do it. So why would you believe it?
So that stat, we could hear that in an encouraging way. It's a 1 in a million chance, but it's only that number because the vast majority of your competition aren't thinking right, which would have you go, well, good.
Right. Right.
I love that.
You could put yourself
I love that. And that is confidence. Exactly. Now let's talk about personal initiative. What does that mean?
Personal initiative is your willingness to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. So instead of in life.
Hold on, you go too fast, man. You got too much gold to cruise at that speed.
So I'll give you an example. If you ever been to an event where nobody knows anybody, everybody there doesn't know anyone else. So it's like a mix and mingle networking type of event or whatever it's for, but it's
yeah. That could be very awkward. I'm remembering one right now, like a big ass networking event where I was at the beginning of my career. I felt very intimidated. A lot of established people, like they gave a list of names of who's in attendance, and I felt like I was like a total rookie.
Right at the bottom of the total pole, right? So
totally. Yep.
So what happens at an event like that? There are some people who will go to that type of event. They know that they don't know anybody. They know that nobody there knows them. Then they go there. They stand on the wall the whole time. They don't introduce themselves to anybody. They don't shake anyone's hand. Someone makes eye contact with them. They look away. They don't try to meet anyone. They stay there for 3 days for the weekend. Go back home. Someone asks them, "Hey, how was that event?" They say, "Well, it was no good. I didn't meet anybody." There's no way to make any connections. But they never tried to make a connection. They didn't take the initiative. And this is the challenge that a lot of people in life have plenty of value within them, but they have not taken the initiative to put it out there to the world, or they make a half-hearted effort of putting themselves out there. I'm sure, like you mentioned at the top of this episode, how I reached out to you and I sent you that personalized video that I knew you would. I figured if you looked at it, you would respond to it. And there are people who probably have reached out to you with a copy and paste form letter, and they didn't really try. And then it doesn't work, and they say, "Oh, I reached out to Chris, he didn't reply." Well, you didn't really try. You didn't really put any initiative into it. Right. So yeah, you did something, but you didn't really do anything. And this is how some people.
That's a great example. Yeah, because you did your work, and I was very impressed with that. Because it is impressive. Now, I can remember going to the first of those. It was an event called Enterprise Network. It's a really high level networking experience. It was really cool. But at the first, I am that guy that you just described. The first, who knows how many times. I do not recall, because this is at least about 20 years ago. I can't remember. I have a guess as to what the shift was. And it was probably, I have had great mentoring. I have been so blessed with phenomenal mentoring throughout my life. It probably was the influence of my mentor, Jim Myers, at the time, who had me do the shift. But I want to hear from you. Like, say you are the wallflower, right, at an event like that, and for whatever reasons that we don't need to psychoanalyze right now, who cares? It's like whatever. The reasons are that you're being timid, like the opposite of being initiative. How do you inspire someone to take initiative, to shift, so that the next time they show up at that event, they demand of themselves that they're leaving with having co-created some damn value?
Great question. What they can do is use the same technique that we talked about when we were discussing confidence.
Word. Okay.
Who is a really confident person that you know of? Think of that person. Go pull up a YouTube video of that person, or go listen to their show if they have one, or follow them on Instagram. And look at the way that they carry themselves. Look at the way that they walk and they talk, and the energy that they have. And you can absorb that energy into you and project that through yourself when you get to that event. And give yourself a number. Give yourself a target. I'm going to shake hands with 3 people a day. If anyone comes within 5 feet of me, I'm going to say hello. And if they say hello back, I'll shake my hand and introduce myself to that person. So use the energy of another person. Think of someone who already is who you want to be.
Oh, I love that. That's so great. Man, that's good. Use the energy of another person. Well, you said something earlier, too. I got too many damn notes, man. I got notes all over the damn table already. Oh, that was it. A barter mentality. Right? So we've already said this, and this is worth repeating. This is so worth repeating. So, because I don't think a lot of people hear this clearly right away. So, like, say you're going to the networking meeting. I hate the way I showed up at the first one. I was just total, like, clam, didn't do anything. And, of course, nobody wanted to talk to me. I hate that. All right. So now I'm going to go be Richard Branson.
All right.
Because he's unbelievably gregarious, confident as hell, cool, social, fun. I want to be that guy.
Okay.
Because he's going to make stuff happen in that room. Even if, like, just even if nobody knows who he is already as the billionaire. Just his personality. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to do that. How can I possibly do that?
Well, the way you would do that is, so let's say he's a billionaire and he knows it, but let's say nobody else knows.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
No one in the room knows he's a billionaire, but he knows.
Yeah.
So if you walk into a room at a networking event and you know that you have all the success, but you're the only one who knows it. You're not shy about talking to anybody.
That's a fun scenario. I love that.
You have the success. You know you're successful. So there's no question that they could ask you that you would be embarrassed to answer. Yeah. There's nothing that they're going to say that's going to make you feel less than because they're better than you, or they're doing more than you, or they have a company with 50 employees.
And you don't need shit.
Right. You have 100,000.
You're needless.
Exactly.
You
don't need anything from them.
Let's go create some cool stuff together.
Exactly. You don't need validation from them. You don't need them to like you. They can completely ignore you.
Money.
You brush it off.
Exactly. You don't need anything.
So when you know that you have that success within you, when you don't need, Russell Simmons talks about this in one of his books. When you need nothing, you get everything.
Oh, yeah.
When you are needy, that energy of neediness pushes things away from you. Exactly. Yeah. And when you have everything, it all comes to you. It's just the energy of the universe. It's just how it works.
That is how it works. Like magnetism.
Exactly.
Right?
All the attraction.
Reverse magnetism. I love that so much. So it's like, I am the infinitely successful Richard Branson type. Nobody knows that, which I kind of love, because that means nobody's going to be asking me for damn autographs. So I can just go hang.
Right.
And go into that room. Now, here's the piece that I think people don't get. I think that I sure as hell didn't get, and I'm still getting, is that I don't have to wait. I don't have to go do years and years of therapy. I don't have to take all this time and rehearse until one day I can be that confident. I can just act like that now. Now, there was a tool that I learned early on in my career called acting as if, and I don't like it anymore. Yeah. I'll tell you why. Do you think you know? You got a guess on why? I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you after you go.
Because you're not acting. You're just already being it. You're not pretending. So the tool, when I learned it in the beginning of my career, was like, well, just act as if you were that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, that was cool then. Now it's like, that's stupid. There's no acting. You're simply being it already.
Right.
When I think about the greatest actors, like Robert De Niro, in Cape Fear, he's not acting like that psycho. He's being it.
Absolutely.
Lost yourself into that role. This is so good. This is good. All right, let's get to our crescendo. Now, the final of the four, which doesn't come in your order, but just for fun, because this is a conversation.
It works either way. Doesn't matter.
All right.
Yeah.
Is mental toughness.
Yeah.
How do you define mental toughness?
I define mental toughness as your willingness to stick to your script of discipline, of confidence, of taking initiative, even when the script has yet to produce the desired outcome. Some people call this stick-to-itiveness. Some people call it grit or persistence. And you can put them all under the umbrella of mental toughness. It's basically dealing with the setbacks that everyone inevitably faces in life and choosing to keep going anyway until you get to the outcome that you set out to achieve.
Like the dude with the pick. And the time is on the tunnel.
Exactly. And with everybody over your shoulder telling you, why do you keep picking at those rocks? There's no diamonds over there. But you keep going anyway.
What about somebody who's dedicated their entire lives to something that just never really unfolded exactly as they wanted it to? Or may not have unfolded anywhere close to the way they wanted it to. Would you call that a success story?
It depends on where the story ends. The end of the story determines whether someone was a visionary who knew it all along or a delusional fool who should have never tried in the first place. It depends on where the story ends. And the thing is, for most of us, as long as we're alive to talk about it, we choose the ending of our stories. I'll give you an example. In college, I went to a Division III college, and you probably know, Chris, that most Division III athletes do not become professionals. I wanted to become a professional. Right. So I got a new coach came in after my sophomore year, and he basically cleaned house. He wanted to get rid of the old guys and bring his own players in. It wasn't because I wasn't good enough, but I ended up outside of the program because the coach didn't want the old players on the team. So midway through my junior year at a D3 school, I'm off the team. For most D3 players, that's basically the end of their basketball story. Yeah. And I could have been, now 20 years or whatever later, bitter and angry at that coach for kicking me off the team and ending my career. However, I kept going. I ended up becoming a professional athlete. So that story of me being off the team in college just becomes a mere footnote in the story. And now it makes me look like even more of a superhero because I went through that setback and I kept going and became even more successful afterward. But had a player gone through that and their career ended at that point, that would just be the end of the story, and that'd be it. You could say, well, their basketball career was okay. But a person like me, because I ended up going pro, that just makes, again, somebody hears that story, you will probably understand. A lot of athletes who've been cut from teams and not on teams and didn't even play in college, they come to me because when they hear my story, they're like, okay, somebody went through that and they did it. All right, so I guess I can do it too. Let me find out what he did. So that just lends to my story, and it allows people to connect with me knowing that somebody can go through that and actually still keep going and reach where you want to reach.
As I listen to you this whole time, I keep having, and I'm always thinking when I'm doing these interviews, I'm always trying to identify with some of the audience members and how they might be hearing this and thinking, what could I ask you that might be in service to them? And I'm wondering, like, if, I'm suspecting that some people that are listening to this still are hung up on he's got something I don't have. Right? Like he's got some kind of level of confidence that I don't have. And he's talking about all the success that he's created for himself that he ended up playing professionally when he got cut or he got bounced, right? From a D3 school.
Right.
Was it Altoona?
Altoona.
Yeah. That's smack dab in the middle of Pennsylvania, isn't it?
Yeah, right in the mountains.
Yeah. And then went and played pro all over Europe and Mexico and stuff. And has created this amazing entrepreneurial pursuit, his business of his. And I think that a lot of times, I think a lot of people might be just saying, well, he's making it sound so easy. Do you have something that people don't have?
Do I have something?
Or maybe maybe the better question is, do you have, I'll just leave it at that. Do you have something that people don't have that has a success be more available to you than others?
Well, more available to me? No. I think success is available to anyone, and anyone can define what their success is. I think what I've been able to do is I've been able to condition myself with the things that we've been talking about here, Chris, over years.
Okay.
Every single day, to the point that it seems natural, right? That it seems like that I was born this way. And they say,
talk about practice.
Right. So you remember the commercials back in the day, maybe she's born with it, maybe it's Maybelline. So this is something that I have been indoctrinating myself with, or Napoleon Hill called it auto-suggestion, every single day for years. So it flows out of me as if I don't even need to think about it.
Now, well, that's about as big a distinction as, there you go. What a phenomenal answer. Mm. Right. So it's practice, conditioning, training,
right.
Mental training, right? Who turned you on to that? Like, were you, when I read your website and your bio, you call yourself, actually in a fun way, a nerd before nerds were cool.
Yes. Back when you got beat up for being a nerd. Yeah.
So, did you have any mentoring, or it was like, how did you learn that this mental reprogramming or conditioning was even an option to you?
Great question. So, well, first of all, my mother's an educator. So she had my sister, who's a year older than me, and myself. We were always reading. She had us reading and learning from a really young age before we started formal schooling. So I've always been into reading.
Cool. So
when I was about 19, someone introduced me to opportunity to make unlimited income potential. It was a network marketing deal. Now, I didn't stay in network marketing, but when I went to a couple of the meetings, these guys used to always say, hey, go get some books after the meeting. And they would name drop these guys I never heard of. Brian Tracy, Jim Rohn, Napoleon Hill. And I never heard of these people. And then they started using this phrase I never heard of. It was called personal development. And when I realized what it was, that is this material that you read that is for you. It's for you to make yourself better and stronger and smarter and more valuable. I said, this is the kind of stuff that I love reading. I was always into like the human psychology and things like that, but I didn't know what to call it. So when I heard of personal development, I said, this is the kind of stuff that I like. So I just started taking that stuff in. The first couple books I read was Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I remember I bought them on eBay for 99 cents, Word documents, when I was in college. So that's how I got into the personal development stuff. And when I read it, the material was just speaking to me, Chris. I said, this is the kind of stuff that I want to be reading. This is what I want to be doing. When I read Kiyosaki and when I read Napoleon Hill, I said, okay, he gets it. These are things that I had been kind of sort of piecing some of these things together in my mind as a youth, but I could never have explained it. But when I read it, I said, okay, somebody's talking about this. I know I'm not crazy. So that's where it came from.
Choosing what to continuously fill your mind with.
Right.
It's like mental nutrition.
Exactly. And the more of it you take in, you indoctrinate yourself. You just keep taking it in, and it becomes you as you do it over and over and over again. You're not thinking about it anymore. It just becomes who you are. It's not what you do, it's who you are.
You know, I've only had it's like 10 o'clock here almost in the morning here in Arizona today. And I've only had two conversations with people today. You're my second. The first one, played basketball at Penn State and said that he's read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich 10 times. How weird is that? And played basketball professionally in Europe.
Who's the guy? Maybe I might know.
Maybe you heard. He was ahead of you by I don't know, maybe 6, 8 years. David Deggets.
No, I don't know.
D-E-I-T-Z. David Deggets.
I gotta look him up.
Now he runs a company. He's the president of a company called iVision, which is based in Atlanta. Look him up. Connect with him.
I will.
He's a super great dude. That's neat. So just for fun, what are a couple of your favorite places where you got to play?
Man, so I'll tell you on the court and off the court.
Oh, right.
So on the court, I'll say Herceg-Novi, Montenegro.
Wow.
And the reason why on the court that was great was because, weirdly enough, we only played a game once a week. Every Saturday. And we practiced Monday through Friday twice a day. So it's 10 practices every one game. That's the way they do it in many places in Europe.
How long were these 2 days?
About 60 to 90 minutes.
Wow, man.
The practices weren't that tough, but just having to show up twice a day.
Yeah.
And for people who don't understand overseas, if you're an American playing basketball overseas, you can't hide. Like you can't loaf through a practice because everybody sees you. Everyone recognizes you, and the team probably made a bigger investment in you than anybody else on the team. So you have to go hard and set the example, quote unquote, set the example every practice. So that's what they're expecting of you. So I learned to start treating the practices like the games. So my game was really sharp in playing in Montenegro simply because of the sheer amount of practice that we were doing every single day. So I really got into a routine, and it really helped me understand what it means to be a pro, be able to explain it to other people. And as far as off the court, I'll give you 2 places. One I'll tell you is Toughness, Lithuania. And that is because that's where I started my career. That's the first time I'd ever left the country.
Oh, wow.
I was 23 years old and just walking through the streets. And I was like, it was so many times I just said to myself, I actually did this. I actually turned this basketball thing into I'm in Europe spending euros. Kanye West had a song at the time where he said, I can't believe we're in Europe spending euros. So I kept thinking of that line. So I'm walking around Kaunas, Lithuania, and the people and the girls are all looking at you, and you are the only black person in the whole town. It was just a surreal experience. Unfortunately, this is before smartphones. This is 2005, so I don't have any photos from that time. And the other place off the court would be Mexico. I was in Guadalajara, Mexico. And the reason why I say Mexico, people probably know Mexico is a third world country, but it was unpredictable. My time in Mexico was unpredictable. I mean, I got a toe infection there. I got an eye infection. I had spent some time on crutches. Luckily, I had taken Spanish in school. So by the time I left Mexico, I was having full-blown conversations in Espanol with people who didn't speak English.
Wow.
And one of my teammates got robbed by the police. We got robbed by the police one night, believe it or not. It was very interesting. I was only maybe 24 at the time that I did Mexico. It was a great experience. I would not trade that experience for anything. I wouldn't have did it again at 30, but at 24, it was a perfect time for me to go through that. It's kind of like going to college again. Being in Mexico, just the unpredictability of it.
You must have a million amazing stories, Dre.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for sharing a portion of that story with us today. This has been an unbelievably rich conversation. So thank you again for taking the personal initiative to reach out to me and for having done. You're the first person I've ever interviewed that has gone to that level of effort, where you did research in advance too. I think that's pretty amazing, and it's obviously testimonial to why you're so damn successful. It's one of the many reasons. Your discipline, your confidence, your personal initiative, and your mental toughness. So where should people go to connect with you, to follow you, to learn more about you, to benefit from all the unbelievable amounts of content that you've got out in the world?
Man, well, I'm on in so many places. As far as social media, I'm on every platform. I guess the most popular one right now would be Instagram. So I'm at Dre Baldwin.
Oh, are you a super Instagrammer?
I use it. Yeah, I use the stories a lot. I like the stories function.
All right. I'm sorry. It's at what?
Dre Baldwin. Just my name. Dre Baldwin,
okay.
one word.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on YouTube. I post videos every day on YouTube. So I do a live stream on Instagram every day. Also on my Facebook page, it's the same material. And then
I'll make sure I put all those links in the show notes.
Yes.
But there was something else you mentioned. When we spoke the other day, you mentioned mirrorofmotivation.com.
Yes.
What is that?
Mirror of Motivation is one of the 4 books that I put together in what I call the Bulletproof Bundle, which is all about, I take those 4 elements: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative. I have a book on each one of them.
Oh, wow.
The Mirror of Motivation is called, subtitle is The Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. So that's the book that, because I have all these books and people ask me, well, where do I start, Dre? So I made this book free so people know where to start. You start with the Mirror of Motivation. The book is already paid for. All you do is cover a small shipping charge. It's a physical book. We ship it worldwide. And with that book, you'll get exactly what we talked about here. Before you start doing stuff, or maybe you can pause all the stuff you're doing and let's focus on who you are being as a person. So when you change who you are being, you change your energy, how you see yourself, the results of your actions will change. And anyone listening to this can think of a time when you were doing stuff and it wasn't working. Then you changed your mindset, did the same thing, and it worked. Simply because your energy changed. The way that you approached it changed. So with the Mirror of Motivation, I'm going to show you how to do that, not because I'm so great and I'm going to hype you up, but because I'm going to show you how to do it through looking in the mirror. That's why the book is called The Mirror of Motivation. You get that at mirrorofmotivation.com.
Mirrorofmotivation.com. I'll definitely be also putting that into the show notes. Dude, thanks, man.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Chris. This is a great conversation. You really took time to dig deep, which doesn't happen all the time on these shows. So I'm glad.
Well, you make that real easy. So way to show up. Appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right.
Shoo-wee. You know, it's a good sign when you take so many pages of notes that you run out of paper and have to go to the cardboard. That's a good sign. That was a really great Tough Talks interview. So Dre dropping bombs, wisdom bombs all day, Baldwin. Yeah. Who do I want to be? What a phenomenal question. What a phenomenally important question, right? For creating your dreams and creating what it is that you want. You know, it sure is a massive expression of mental toughness when you demonstrate, first of all, the awareness that that's even a possibility, and then 2, the willingness to go ahead and choose in a moment's time to go and be someone, to be a way that you haven't been being without waiting for anything, right? And just starting to be that person now in order to create excellence at an unbelievably more rapid pace. That's just as powerful as it gets. What did he call it? He had a really cool, oh man, I have to go back and look. I should have wrote that down because, he didn't call it zenith. He had a really great word. I can't remember what it was. So that's good stuff. Borrowing another winner's mentality, being them. So, and mental alchemy. Great stuff. All right, mirrorofmotivation.com. I'm going to put all this stuff in the show notes, but in case you're listening to this on the podcast and can't see any of that stuff, go to mirrorofmotivation.com, and that's the book that he's written on the first of the 4 pillars, which is discipline, right? Mirrorofmotivation.com. And then if you want to connect with him on social media, he's just incredibly prolific. He's constantly putting out stuff. He said he does live Instagrams and YouTubes every day. So on Instagram, he's at Dre Baldwin, and Dre is D-R-E, Dre Baldwin. YouTube, just go to YouTube and just search Dre Baldwin. And it's at Work on Your Game, which is also his Facebook page. You can also just search Dre Baldwin, but it's Work on Your Game. All right, folks. Thanks again for watching and listening to another episode of Tough Talks. If you love this stuff, please share it. That would be really helpful for me in growing this, so I can reach as many more people on the planet as possible with all these amazing badasses from the world of mental toughness to share nuggets with you that you can take away and integrate into your life to help it be significantly more effortless for you to create badassery. All right, guys, till next time, create miracles.